She put the dark wig on, and she is now mistaken for Linda Ronstadt. So I went out and I found the players. I knew what the other guitarist kind of needed to be like, and I knew who that was. It was going to be Carl Haug, and so I went and got him. And I knew the keyboardist I wanted. It was going to be Norm Peterson, and I knew the drummer, Mark Montanino, was going to be there, and Martin Rush on bass. I just kind of have a knack for knowing the right recipe, the right people to put into certain places. I think that's a really important factor in developing a band as a good leader, to look at the team and be able to say, you're the one I need to do this. But they will also respect the other people doing what they need to do and not try to step over that. If you listen to symphonies, if you listen to classical music, the horns are in a specific spot, and they're not playing the whole time. They're just playing when they hit certain punches. And then over here, the violins have their parts that they're doing, and they're not playing over the top of everybody else. Everybody fits together in this great recipe that is music.
How does a band continue to function? Most of the band members you've been with now for a long time, it's such a glamorous life, right? That everybody just
living the dream.
They love it. And so what is it really like to be a musician when you're not, a starring headlining band like Styx or the Rolling Stones or something? What is it like to be a tribute musician in reality?
Well, you were kind of asking another question first. I kind of want to address that first, which is, how do bands work together? How do they do that? Musicians themselves fall into two different categories, at least rock musicians. They fall into one category I would call the entrepreneur, which those are the guys that kind of make things happen. You're not only in the band, but you're going to go out and get the gigs. You're going to arrange for the transportation. You're going to arrange for the sound man and the lighting, and you're going to distribute all the information to the band members. You're going to be part of the person in the band that makes things happen. That's what I call the entrepreneur. And some bands have at least one. It's hard to have a band where one guy doesn't step up and do that stuff, because it really has nothing to do with music and everything to do with being able to play it. The entrepreneurs in the band always do that stuff. There's the other type of person in the band. They're the Three Musketeers, I call. And these kind of guys happen usually when you and your buddies are sitting around shooting the bull, and somebody says, yeah, I used to play guitar in a band. And another guy says, you know what, that's funny, I used to play drums. And then all of a sudden you're talking, and all of a sudden you realize you all have the skill set to do a band. And then somebody says, well, why don't we put a band together? Let's get together and jam. And so everybody gets together to do that, and they're all equal at that point. Inevitably, somebody has to rise. It's very rare in a band that everybody shares that load equally. I imagine it happens somewhere, but usually it doesn't. Even in the famous acts, most of the songs are either written by one or two of the people in that band. So you always have somebody step up to cover various roles. The problem can arise when you have somebody in the band that's an entrepreneur, and he's doing a lot of the work, and then it gets down to divide the money. You've got one guy that's doing a ton of the work, and the other guys, they're showing up and playing, and they may play great, they may be playing their role awesome, but they expect an equal cut. Remember, Three Musketeers, all for one and one for all? And that can really drive a wedge through some of the people in the band. And so you just have to know kind of how you're set up, how you're going to go about it. In those cases where I'm the one setting it up, it's really clear who's responsible for doing that. And so I do take a little bit of a cut off the top of the pay to cover taxes, to cover the cost of writing a check, to cover the cost of maintaining the website. Those kind of things I do take an extra cut for, and that's how those things get started.
In case there's some youth out there who are thinking, hey, I can play guitar, or I'm a great drummer, I should put together a band. Should they? Or what would be your advice to someone who says, yeah, I want to be a famous musician and I'm going to be a rock star. How would you tell them to get started, or would you tell them to find something else to do?
Well, I guess the thing to me is, if it's a question, then the answer is no. Music is such a passion. If you have to ask yourself, should I put a band together, then the answer is no. Guys that put bands together go, I got to put a band together. I have to perform. I have to do this. There's a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of blisters on your fingers, and there's a lot of disappointment, and sometimes in entertainment things don't work, and you have bad gigs, and it's late, or you get stiffed in payment by somebody. There's a lot of bad things that if you're not totally committed to it, it's going to be a rough go.
Well, what makes it worth it then? Why should you be committed? Why should you answer that desire or that drive to start a band? What do you get out of it personally? What's in it for you?
In my case, when I'm on stage and I'm singing, and I can hear my voice coming through the sound system, and I can see people responding to it, I feel more like myself in that moment than any other time in my life. You say, well, what makes you do it? In those moments, for those moments, I don't know that I really have that much of a choice. It becomes who I am, not what I'm doing. And it's easy to ask, why am I doing this, when it's what you're doing? It's impossible to ask, why am I doing this, when it's who you are. If that's who you are, that's the answer. I'm doing this because I feel more like myself. When I'm up on stage singing, the audience is responding to what I'm hearing. When I'm singing live and I hear my voice, I'm in awe of what I'm hearing. It's really outside of myself. When I hear that, I really recognize that as a blessing. I was born with this voice. You asked if I had any voice training. I really haven't had any voice training. I've just been able to do this. So when I'm able to deliver my voice as well as I can, it's a surreal moment where I really do feel a great blessing of being able to do this. And I walk off stage sometimes, and people will be very complimentary. Wow, you sing great. And I want to say, I know, but I can't say that. And I know that sounds very egotistical to say it that way, but I'm coming at it from a different point. I really hear that voice, and I think, this isn't me. This isn't me that's singing. So I can almost say, this voice that's coming out of me is coming from somewhere else, somewhere that is within, without. You can make your own interpretation of it. I really think of it as a blessing. I really am putting that blessing, the reason for that, upon something else. For me, it's God, but for somebody else, it might be your heart, your passion, whatever you have. But I don't have a choice. That's what I get out of it. When I'm on stage, I feel like what I'm doing there is more me than almost anything else I ever do.
The first part of the title of this podcast is Speak, to speak with power. That is the reasons that I have this show. As a musician, you've got a mic in front of you, and so your voice becomes magnified, it becomes more powerful. But what I'm hearing you say is that the power in you does not come from the microphone, but more from the authenticity in that moment, and that your message is the exact message you want to be giving in that moment. Even if you're singing someone else's song, the power that you have when you sing is not the mic, but it's the fact that you're being authentic. Is that a true statement?
You have to convey the emotion. You can't just say the words. You can't just sing the words. You have to convey the emotion in the song. I mean, when you're delivering music, it's such an emotional connection. Especially the stuff that I do is older. So when I'm singing to these people, these songs that they're hearing, they heard at a very turning point in their life. They heard when they were young. They were in high school. It was their first girlfriend. It was their first car. It was their first date. It was their first dance. That's what these songs connect to these people at. If I get up there and I just sing the lyrics, and I just sing on key and I sing the lyrics, that's not going to reach them unless I convey the emotion that's also in the song as it was written. It's not about just hitting the right note. You've got to hit the emotion, and that is a lot of things. It's delivery. It's how powerful your voice is. It's how, believe it or not, you can tell the difference when somebody is smiling when they're talking or singing than if they're not. Got to have the right emotion in your face. You got to be happy. Got to be have a lot of movement on stage helps too. That's how the power gets across.
I teach adults and children public speaking skills.
I've heard that.
And it is a challenge for the kids to put emotion in their messages when they're practicing a speech or when they're actually presenting a speech to the class. And I talk about it all the time. You've got to emote. You've got to be a little melodramatic. You've got to show the audience what you're feeling instead of just always saying, I'm sad. You have to show on your face and in your body that you're feeling sad. It's great to hear that that is a skill, even in music, that the audience won't buy it until they feel it, and they'll only feel it when you're presenting it with feeling. Yeah. That's great. You have formed a different team that's still a musical team in the last couple of years. I understand you have written and produced a musical stage show that has to do with music.
Yes.
What was it like to lead something like that, and what's your background in theater?
So as we were delivering these tribute shows, I had set up weekly tribute nights at a few different venues in the Seattle area. And it was an evening of people listening to these tribute bands. Well, one night with the Linda Ronstadt tribute, we got to do the show in chronological order. And as we did it in chronological order, we got to walk the audience through the career of Linda Ronstadt, introducing each song, what album it was on, what Linda was doing at this time in her life. As I did that, we really felt that we had the audience right in the palm of our hand. They were so intent on what we were doing. So I thought, this is the real strength of the tribute band, is not just the music, delivering the music, but to tell the story of the artist. And so I got this idea, what if we put a DJ over in the corner, and it would bounce back and forth between the band and this DJ who would introduce each song as they came up, just like they would on a radio. That idea there expanded into Tribute Time Machine show. Theater would become a giant steampunk time machine, and we would have a captain and we'd have crew, and they would fly the audience back in time to the beginning of whatever artist we were featuring that night.
Come up on the Tribute Time Machine. Take your seat, away we go. Rockin' with the Tribute Time Machine. Just slip your memories into cruise control.
As we would go through the different eras of this artist's music, a disc jockey, a DJ, and a news, sports, weather, traffic guy would also go through time, introducing the music and also telling stories, news stories, entertainment stories, weather reports, traffic reports of the era as we walked through time. And then we'd also run period TV commercials, kind of a real drenching of nostalgia to try to walk the audience through things that most of the people in there had experienced through their life and listening to the music of this artist. So we debuted that in 2016. The person that I always had in my mind for being the DJ there was a guy named Pat Cashman, who was a famous local TV and radio star. So that was a little bit of a dream come true for me. It was immersing myself in something that I really hadn't been that immersed in before, that is theater. We designed and built sets. We did the script. We did the help to the band come up with the right music and wrote stories around the band so that the DJ could talk to it. It was a ton of work to pull this off. And in that situation, pick people that you know would work good with you as a team and had very specific skill sets that would be advantageous to getting everything done, from the writers and the graphic designers. Everybody had their parts to play, and then just like a symphony, when the conductor raises his hands up, everybody lifts their instruments up and plays, and hopefully everything goes off as you planned. So that's what that was like. It was insane.